Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of An Astrologer's Calling, where we chat with your favorite astrologers about how they ended up doing what they do. We'll explore their incredible journeys, dip into some of their personal stories and just feel the inspiration that they bring on a personal and mundane level. So today, we're very lucky to have the wonderful Christeen Skinner, who's a leading financial astrologer based in London. She offers advice to entrepreneurs, chief executives, and business leaders, and is the author of several books, including Exploring the Financial Universe. Christine's also passionate, which I love this, about the preservation of esoteric texts and is a trustee of the Urania Trust and a director of the Alexandria iBase project. And if she doesn't have enough to do, she also runs an astrofinance course and offers a free monthly newsletter service via her website. So thank you so much, Christine, for giving up some of your time, which I know is probably very, very
I
limited.
actually thought this was a coffee chat, so I made myself a coffee. But anyway,
It is, but I have to introduce you. Bit of PR, bit of promotion. We all need that, don't we? So, although I've been lucky enough to spend some time at you with a couple of conferences already this year, it's always a little bit we're flitting here, there, and everywhere. So, I still am really interested in how astrology found you or how you found astrology.
well, some people will have heard this story before because the story doesn't change really. But I was born in Edinburgh and I attended the Brownies, which was, like the young girl guide thing. And obviously it gets dark up there quite early, right? So we weren't walking to and from this church hall alone. So my dad would come to pick me up at about 7:30 of an evening. And it was on a slight hill. And in those days, light pollution was not as bad as it is now. So, and we were in the suburbs of Edinburgh. So as we were walking home one day, he pointed out the planets, explained how they were the wanderers, the stars, blah, blah, blah. And he said cryptically, and this bit I remember very clearly, he said, some people think that they affect life on Earth. But as we approached the house, he said, don't mention any of that to your mother. So I didn't know I was not supposed to mention or whatever, but I was really intrigued. So I went to the library, and of course, I would have been 9 or 10 at the time. I hadn't listened properly. I don't remember the word astrology then. So I got out books on astronomy. So I came into astrology through the other door. And I couldn't wait for the following week for him to tell me more about how these things affected life on Earth. And he did, but he did it in a very kind of serious way. Looking back now, I think he was actually doing it in a very responsible way. He had spent some time during the war in India, and he had huge respect for Indian astrologers and the spiritual path of what it was. So he must have said something to me that made me realize that there was something very special about it. Anyway, fast forward a few years, and I got to about 15 or 16. And one Saturday morning, I bought the book Teach Yourself Astrology in a bookstore, which you're too young to remember these, but there were a whole series of books, Teach Yourself Greek and all sorts of things. So this was Teach Yourself Astrology.
Was that Jeff Mayo's
Yes, Jeff
book?
Mayer.
Yeah, I've got it, and it's in
Which was
bits. It's
fantastic. It's absolutely fantastic. So
yeah.
anyway, I had this little book, and I calculated my chart incorrectly because I didn't allow for British summertime. So I gave myself the wrong ascendant and whatever, and thought, well, that's not really me. I don't think there's much in this. But I was sufficiently intrigued to know that I might have made an error with the maths. So I went to the maths teacher to ask for help, at which point I got suspended. I mean, you really can't make this stuff up, right? And I didn't know what I'd done wrong, right? I'd gone for maths help with some logs. So like, like what? how was this suddenly, really bad news? So anyway, I went back and told my dad, who helped me with the calculations, and incidentally got me help from a guy called Joe Dunning, who at the time was the head of Napier University in Edinburgh, who thought it was hilarious that I'd been suspended for this. And he was very, very pro astrology, really very, very interested. So I was very lucky that I had two people who did not poo-poo it, right? But both of whom said, look, this is really serious. You don't play with this. It's people's lives. You absolutely don't read people's charts. You have to do this really seriously, boom. And you certainly don't do it as a young kid, right? That's it. You don't have enough life experience. And that was made very plain to me that, this was not something you could do until you really were well advanced in living. So I didn't. So then I went off to be a professional musician, and I did all of that, and then came back to it in the middle 1980s, by which time I was into my 30s. So you could say that I had, I'd had the Saturn return, right? And I'd done all the stuff, I mean, I'd lived a bit by then. So then, but we had no money. There was another sort of feature at the time. Right. Again, you're slightly too young to remember all of this, but interest rates were through the roof. Money was super tight.
No, I do. I'm older than I look. No, I do remember it.
You must have been a teenager at this point. But
Yeah,
anyway,
yeah.
I certainly couldn't have afforded to take classes and what have you. So I sat as an external candidate, the Faculty of Astrological Studies exam. And once I'd got their diploma, then, of course, I was welcomed into that community and then started engaging with them. However, because I had not studied with them and I'd studied everywhere else, I came from a very different background, really, because I hadn't been schooled in any, sorry, no pun intended there, but I hadn't been pushed down any particular road, right? So I came having just read everything. That was all. Yeah. And then but I was really intrigued. I used to get so, Wendy Stacey is not going to like me saying this, but I and a few other people are going to object to this as well. But I used to get so mad at this term about unaspected planets. I mean, that was like you've no idea. It grated on me like you could not imagine, because to me, an unaspected planet was simply a planet that we hadn't understood yet. Like it was integrated with everything else, but on a number that we could, or a frequency rather, that we hadn't gathered in yet. So I was very much into harmonics and into maths. And if you're into harmonics and maths, you're on the way to financial astrology, because it's the only place you can test anything. You're not dealing with people's love lives or anything.
Yeah.
It's great.
You can quantify it, can't you? You can qualify and quantify. Yeah.
You can measure. And it's lovely because you can truly test theories. And so all the things that you learned, like, I mean, the classic one is, well, Leo and gold go together, or the sun and gold go together, and they don't, right? Like, you do all the studies on it, do the research, right? And Leo is not the winner, right? The winner's Capricorn, by the way. So it's a completely different thing. So I think, I mean, I've been really, really lucky, because I've come in on the edge of the new curve, which brought the computers in, because they weren't there before, right? So initially I was doing all the charts by hand, and then suddenly we had ZX81 machines, and we could start to test, and now we can really test. And so I think the quality of the work we do, it's really quite incredible now. But it does make me in awe of the people who did go before and who did all of that stuff by hand.
Yeah, I just don't know how they did it.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm out of the loop now, but I would love it now if, when they do exams for students, if they would deliberately give them false charts and say, what's wrong with this? Right? This person was born in 1972, but there's Pluto in Taurus, right?
Yeah.
Because I think that there is an over-reliance now on pressing the button. And,
absolutely.
Yeah, and not actually questioning what's produced.
That's it. You give someone a false a chart with a Pluto return in almost if
That's
you
right.
feel them.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Because you'd be surprised how many students would miss that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
that that's I think that's the bit that's gone wrong,
yeah,
right? I think
yeah.
some things have gone fantastically well, brilliantly, absolutely brilliantly,
Mm.
but there's a lack of questioning, and also there's we don't look up anymore. You know,
Mhm.
that's I was so lucky because I actually saw them moving in the sky. I saw he pointed out Venus. I can remember
Mhm.
this Venus as an evening star, and I can remember seeing her move from one week to the next.
Yeah.
We don't do that now.
No,
Or
because you look at screens.
yeah, we just look at screen. Yes, although you can do it with the astronomy on the screen, but it's not quite the same thing. There was
No.
something really very special about standing and really experiencing it. So yes,
It
that
is, yeah, 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 Christine, and that brings me back to something I was chatting about with I've been chatting with a few people about this with Uranus moving into Gemini, and just say we're going to be bombarded with even more information, even more tech, even, and our heads are so full of noise, and we've got the ability to tap into so much data, just at our fingertips. And I think this is a really important time to make sure that we find a way of grounding ourselves and being able to find some sort of off switch for all of these incredible Uranian connections that are going to be buzzing around in our minds. And, looking at the stars, physically standing outside and look at them, I think because your feet are on the ground, but you're looking at the heavens, it's a
yeah.
beautiful way to ground yourself.
I think you're absolutely right. I mean,
Mhm.
I'm with you on this. But the other factor is that is solar activity, and I'm totally passionate about
Yeah,
that. And
yeah,
that is presently extreme. So we're all of us being bombarded by forces which we have no experience of. You can't say, well, the last solar maximum X, because they're all different, right? And this one is absolutely extreme. Ona Dosa, the
mhm.
Turkish guy who's done a lot of work on this, is now looking and seeing how our hormones are affected by this. And I'm thinking, this is something we don't, when I print out a chart, I can do all sorts of fancy things now and show fixed stars and all sorts of whatever. But also what I want to see is what was the solar activity like
Yeah,
when you were born, and where is it today? Right? Because how you respond to these solar
yeah.
things, I think is just as important.
Yeah, I think so. And I've just a question's popped into my head. So, do you think if someone's particularly solar, they've got a strong sun or Leo qualities, etc. in their chart, do you think they react more to solar
No,
activity? No?
no, no,
Okay.
not in my experience. No,
Okay.
because that's a completely separate thing. But when I was putting together the first book, the Financial Universe, the early one, I was looking at the charts of leaders and whether or not they'd, Tony Blair at the time, whether or not they'd come in with very low solar activity and how
Mhm.
did they respond when there was much higher solar activity. And actually, I do think there's a difference. I think when people come in on a low, and then suddenly the number of sunspots is not what their body is familiar with at all, and yet they're in positions of power and what have you. They tend towards extreme behavior, so their judgment is possibly not as good as it should be. Well, it's super interesting this because
Yeah.
we can only really forecast about 27 days, which is not very much notice, right? But they do get the sense of, when you're going to have a G7 meeting or,
Yeah.
there's going to be a peace thing this week. I think assessing the condition of the sun is really just as important as seeing whether or not there was a void of course moon or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. That's fascinating. That's a whole other
it's a whole other
school.
thing. But
And
now
yeah.
we can do it. We couldn't. The whole thing is we didn't really do it before. Yes, there are solar studies that were, by astrologers back in the 19th century, but they didn't have all the data we've got now. And they were looking at it against wheat prices and whatever. I'm
Yeah.
actually looking at it from a behavioral point of view.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's really fascinating. And it just shows capacity for astrology. It doesn't matter how many years you've been doing it and how much
Always going to be something
knowledge.
else.
There's
And
always.
then there's this awful thing of somebody discovering a new planet, and you think, shit,
I
I haven't got enough room on this blasted chart for,
know, I know, I know. I know it's,
I mean, you know,
yeah. It's
and
infinite.
and
It's about the
flipping
infinite
and they keep
nature.
flipping asteroids, so you can't get past anything.
I know, I
I
know,
mean,
I know.
it's becoming increasingly difficult to read the chart. And I think maybe what will happen now is that we have more people specializing in particular
Yeah.
areas. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And I think we have to be discerning. I do think there's, for example, an asteroid for, for every occasion, a dwarf planet perhaps, or trans-Neptunian for every occasion. We have to be discerning because if we do plug everything at once into the chart,
Well,
it just becomes a mess.
we really got to stop this. I'm really, I'm also I'm passionate about this because when you're saying, you're not guilty of this at all, but I mean, I have been looking at stuff on the internet. Everybody's talking about this Uranus in Gemini, right? Okay, you can't look at it on its own, right? Sedna
No,
went last
no,
week, right? For a start, Sedna went in, so Sedna is culpable for some of this stuff as well.
yeah,
There's a trine to Pluto.
yeah,
There's Saturn and Neptune between them, and so it's the entire planetary picture. I don't
yeah.
think you can just talk about one little bit.
No, no, Uranus isn't doing this alone.
No, it's not. It's
It's
absolute
teamwork. It's teamwork.
work, yes. And the seeds for what it's going to bring have already been sown.
Yeah,
So yeah, but this is another thing which is so fabulous for us today, which wasn't true before, is the fact that we can do so much more research. And we
yeah,
can, you could spend I know, you could fall into the black hole of YouTube,
yeah, yeah,
violent fun, couldn't you? And there's so many interesting ideas out there, but so much research to do.
yeah. Yeah, yeah. Well, lucky we can do, I mean, you can just literally you can go to Wikipedia and check out what happened in the year 1820 and get a good idea. And then that can lead you into some more sort of specific and possibly reliable and authentic stuff. But it leads the way and we can access that within seconds and get an idea of,
It's it's truly fantastic.
yeah,
It really is, and I think these small pockets of information. Let me do my plug. For the Astrology News Service or for the iBase. The iBase. Incidentally, what's happened with the iBase in this last week since you and I came back from Istanbul?
yeah,
Oh my God, right? That's attracted somebody else in. It's incredible, this iBase. I have to say this. I
yeah,
mean, it's extraordinary. From the day that the idea was planted, every time it hits a roadblock, we run out of money or we run out of information or something. There's like a 24-hour gap between us realizing there's a problem and it being resolved. It's just
um,
just absolutely incredible. Anyway, we've attracted this amazing guy who is now bringing in AI assistance to us so that it's getting even better. If you want to do research, it is now absolutely the place to go.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, that's brilliant. And I just think that's such an important thing that you're involved with and that you're supporting and pushing and yeah,
It is.
fantastic.
We need it. The thing now is we need to get more countries involved and more
Mhm.
languages. Mm.
Yeah,
And that's, but that's down to us making connections, and that's
yeah,
down to people management. That's not an AI job. That's
yeah.
to do. But it's just a wonderful way of spending time. The librarian is actually coming here in September. Mm.
Fabulous.
Yeah, so I'm really, really pleased about that. And she's going to go and visit the AA library, I think. Well,
Um,
here. I don't know how many days she's got in the UK, but I was hoping that I could take her up to Cambridge as well and show her some of the stuff up there because there's pockets of really good works all over the place.
yeah, yeah. No, exciting. It's all exciting.
Yeah.
So, moving on,
Yeah.
I don't know if this is a question you can answer easily or not. It's like, what would you say astrology has brought to you on a personal level?
Oh, I'm actually, that's not such a hard one to answer. We I'm a Libra. Let's start with that. So of course I've had many years of Pluto going through Capricorn, right? And during that time, coped with multiple deaths. I mean, just
Mm.
it was an endless parade of things. And um, it soon became apparent that it wasn't that they didn't affect me, but once I knew when the event had happened, there was a real understanding of the cycle of life, which I don't think I would have had under any other circumstances. And
Yeah.
that's not to say that I wasn't also interested in the births that happened. Please, I was not fixated on it, but there's been huge comfort, absolute comfort in seeing something come to its natural end and knowing that that cycle is actually now on its way somewhere else.
Yeah.
It's not that it hasn't taken away grief, right? But it's modified it. And I think that's been really quite a profound shift.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I mean, I don't know what more I could really add to that, but
Don't think you need to add any more to that. It's quite beautiful.
yeah, and I mean, it's just it's lovely the connections that you have with people because you see how, you know, I was looking at your chart before we spoke. Right? Okay, so all right, okay, I'll fess up now. So
You've been spying on me.
no, I was spying on you. Well, I was just trying to work out what we were going to talk about, right? And there, your Juno is on my Saturn to the button, right? Well, okay, I think there's about 4 seconds in between it, but I mean that's
We'll
a
forgive that. Yeah.
we'll forgive that, right? But so I had a 10 minutes worth of Juno-itis, and I went to have a look to see where Juno was in various other people's charts that had worked out. And it's that kind of thing. It's
Yeah.
that's another deep joy in the day now, is looking to see how do you react. Oh, and if I can put a funny into this. So we
Oh,
had
another funny. Yes, please.
so we had a real funny in here yesterday. So the youngest grandson, who's a bit of a nightmare, really, and the computer was still on, right, before we had this family day. So there was a chart still on, which is quite unusual, actually. I usually try and get rid of it. Anyway, he came in, he said, "That's not my chart." And I thought, well, that's quite interesting that you know it's not yours, you know, like, you know. And he said, "Why aren't you looking at mine?" A typical, you know, nearly 10-year-old, like just me. Well, he was super excited about the fact that his godfather was coming to see him. That was the whole point of the thing. So he particularly wanted to be sitting in a chair, stroking a balloon that was going to be a make out for a cat, and he was going to say, and he wanted some James Bond music in the background. He wanted to say, "I've been expecting you," you know, right? This is, yeah. So he was trying to set all this scene up, and I said, "Look, we've got about another 15 minutes before he's here, right? So you don't need to sit in the chair just yet, right? We have it all organized, and can we turn the music down for now?" He said, "Can I see Sam's chart?" So I thought, well, that's quite tricky because I don't really like you seeing a load of things. I said, "Well, why do you want to see Sam's chart?" He said, "I just want to see how it fits with mine." Now
Wow.
that's very interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
I thought, well, actually, I don't know. You know, like my mind I was still thinking about this watermelon salad I was trying to put together. Thinking of this. So anyway, I put the two charts together. Monty has a Gemini moon in it, and Sam has a Sun Jupiter conjunction in Gemini, and they slotted together. Yeah, it was just like amazing. Now, I can tell you absolutely for sure. Well, A, we didn't know when Monty was going to arrive, right? And we certainly never chose that chart
Mm.
of them to get together.
Yeah.
I spent the entire afternoon talking about Sam's travels around the world and world maps, and well, I mean, it was like astrology, and like it was funny.
Yeah.
It was beautiful to watch.
Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah.
And you just can't make it up.
No, you can't.
You
You
can't
really
make it up.
it's just sometimes it's too absurd, and
Yeah.
It's just too wonderful. But I
Yeah.
also, I mean, I would have to say that there are days when I've got up and thought, that's it, I'm leaving this. I'm not doing it anymore. That's it. I'm done. That's it. I'm absolutely not doing this anymore. It's too hard. I can't do it.
Yeah.
Blah, right.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, that lasts, that sometimes 20 minutes.
Yeah. You're too far down the path now to turn back. Too far down.
Yeah,
Oh,
yes, but it is exasperating. It's exasperating when you get something, when you're so sure you've cracked the code, and then
yeah.
you discover, shit, I've missed something,
Yeah.
The market just went how did I not get that number? Why did I not get it then? So,
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean,
And that brings in the human element, doesn't it? We're only human, and it's just still a journey of growth and learning. It doesn't matter how many years you've been doing astrology, you're still just learning.
but that's true, Leanne. I think
Mm.
I came from the professional music world, and Michael played every night, and all our friends were, involved in West End shows. And you'd think, wouldn't you, that it's the same show, they're playing the same show. Maybe, some of those shows, Cats or things, were on for about 25 years. They were playing the same stuff every day. And yet they were still practicing in the morning, always. Nobody ever gave that up. And they would openly acknowledge that some shows ran better than others
Yeah.
because nobody plays exactly the same on any 2 days. The fallback is always to make sure that you've got a good enough technique so that if you're going on the way to going down with flu or something,
Yeah.
there's a level of competence you
Yeah.
never go below.
Yeah.
So, I'm an avid, I'm sure you are, we eat the ephemeris, like you have the ephemeris for breakfast, you have it for supper, that's it. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
It's here all the time. Yeah.
yeah. And I think maybe that's the diet, right? And you
Mhm.
can't really do without it.
No, I think you eat, live, and breathe it.
Yes, and you're watching it
Yeah.
incessantly,
Yeah.
you- just even the smallest of things, the names of something, or converting a newspaper headline back into planetary language. It's just, once you're in
Yeah.
it, you can't give it up.
You can't, and I'll share a funny story about that. So, obviously, I'm a Cancer baby, so it was my birthday at the end of June. And just this year, I've got loads of Jupiter stuff going on by progression as well. And the end of June, pretty much, I had progressed Mars trine, natal Jupiter. It's just
Nice.
Jupiter
Yes.
everywhere. And I got a perfume for my birthday, and it's called Limitless. I was just like, it's so Mars trine Jupiter, like, all this Jupiter's limitless. And you
That's
could,
that's really truly fabulous. But you see, that's our gift, isn't it?
yeah,
Our
yeah,
gift is that we can see that connection.
yeah,
So so
yeah.
I think one of the gifts of astrology is that it actually enhances your living, right?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely, because it made that gift even more special because it wasn't just a gift from a relative, it was a gift from the universe as well.
Cosmos, yes, yeah, no, that's fabulous.
I
Yeah.
know. So anyway, Christine, I'll just another couple of minutes. I'll not keep you too long because I know you're so busy. What would your typical working day look like? People are always curious about this type of thing.
Okay. Can
If
I
the
just
typical one.
we're at 11 o'clock. Can I just tell you where we're at so far today?
Yes,
So
please.
I came down this morning. I've been stuck with a graph that's going into the new book. So I wasted or spent about an hour and a half trying to resolve this, getting right. And that's a normal thing now for an astrologer is the wrestle with technology. Right? That's now part and part of the day. By 7 o'clock, I give that up. That's whatever, by 7 o'clock, I've got to get into the emails for the day. There will have been a load overnight because I do a lot of work for Americans. They're on both coasts. So I'm running for the day is actually quite long here, which is why I start early here so I can get my written work done that I want to do. So between 7 and 8, I'll have dealt with whatever the emails are, right? At which point I need a food and whatever fix, right? And a bit of a break from it all. I try and read at about 8:45 and try and read something that I haven't read before, right? So a new idea, which let me show you what I'm reading just now. This week's one is Starborn, How the Stars Made Us and Who We Would Be Without Them. It's not an astrology book, but it's popular. Well, I suppose it's popular science, right? A sweeping inquiry into how the night sky has shaped what it means to be human. And so I like other people's approach. I like to do a bit of reading with that.
Yeah.
Then just turned 9. I've got to start the prep. The markets will have opened, so I see where things are at for the day, and then I've got to start the prep. Normally there would be a client by 11 o'clock. We would be into client time. That takes us up to lunchtime. Bit of a break, right? Slightly long break then, right? And then probably a client at 3 and other calls at 5 o'clock. Then dinner, and then possibly we're going to be having a US. It's really busy at the moment. But of course it's busy at the moment. I've got a load of Jupiter transits, right? Yeah. Like you, right? I've got a cardinal T-square, and Jupiter's having a load of fun. So it is really, this year is busier than it has ever been, right? This is on a scale I haven't seen before, right? It won't last forever, right? So I'm trying to make the most of it and get this astrofinance thing running smoothly. But that means looking after people really well, getting the feedback from them. Today's deep joy will be whatever happens to Tesla today. Tesla prices are in the, and that's another thing we should actually mention. I was crystal clear. I could not have been clearer that I did not advise trading last week, right? I was absolutely firm as I could be with a particular client. She bought in anyway, right? Last Tuesday. It's a real danger week anyway, because the US was going to be closed on July the 4th, right? Having its holiday day. You have to watch all of those things. That makes a difference too. Plus Venus was going to change signs. Uranus was going to change signs. The sun was going berserk. There were so many signs signals that said, don't play here unless you're really highly experienced, and absolutely put the safety nets in. She actually sent me a note on Thursday saying I should have listened to you on Tuesday. And I mean, at this point, I really want to put my head in the gas oven, which we haven't got anymore. It's electric. But, you really want to, this is not the best use of my time, right?
Yeah.
But this is the problem now. I've got a client in real financial distress, and she will be looking for times. When can I buy in? When is it going to go up? Can I get my money back? She's a Leo, and I'm not being rude about Leos, right? But so this is not a generalization. I think we've all known Leos who can be fixated and can't possibly be wrong, and will not change tack. So there's no point in me saying, well, actually, why don't you just give up on Tesla and try this instead?
Yeah.
She's absolutely into this
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
Aside from that, it is actually it's intellectually interesting to see what will happen to Tesla today.
Well, it is. We're all gripped by the news at the minute. It just changes from minute to minute. It's just crazy. The world is yeah, it's very crazy.
But this is, I think, why we are as busy as we are.
Yeah, yeah. We're living through fascinating times from an astrological perspective. And I say this to my students, everything that's going on in the world is just rich fodder for learning. The times you're living through and the planetary shifts, it's fascinating. Yeah.
It really is. I do think we're actually privileged to be
Yeah.
this now, but guiding or navigating people through it is, I think, requires, well, an awful lot of experience.
It does. It's skill and empathy, and yeah, without a doubt. Because they're exciting times, but they're incredibly challenging on many levels. So Yeah.
It will be interesting to see where we are in a year's time, you know.
Yeah. I think it'll be quite different. Quite different. Yeah.
I mean, we can say this, you know, every day is different. Making the most of every day is like whatever. You've got, and we don't really have very much control, right? But we do have awareness. And I think awareness is where it really helps, because if you know when, for example, Uranus is going to culminate or whatever, then you can be prepared for the dodgy moments if that's how you experience.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. It's a gift. Astrology is a gift from
Anyway,
the
in the midst of
cosmos.
all of this yesterday, to turn back to yesterday, so of course I then got fixated on showing Monty and Sam their charts and blah, blah, blah. And then had to go back to dress these salads. And I had made the 3 dressings, but couldn't remember which ones they went on to. Right. And then went back to look at my chart and thought, oops, that was maybe not the wisest thing to have been doing in the last hour. There you go.
I love it. I love it. I love it. So before we finish, Christine, are there any exciting projects that you'd like to share?
Well, there are going to be. We are, yeah,
Uh,
there are. Yes, there is one that there. Yes, there are 2 projects that are. You know, we will Instagram when we're ready, but things are moving forward. Since we came back from Istanbul, I don't know
yeah,
what happened to us there. It must have been the Turkish coffee or something, but it came back with so many ideas,
yeah,
and
it's magical.
everything is just pushing forward at a pace that is really,
Yeah,
really fantastic. But no, we've got to go back.
yeah. Oh, definitely. I'm going back without a doubt. I don't quite know when, but I am. Yeah, and I'll have a few good reasons to go back. So, yeah, it is incredibly exciting for sure. So,
Well, you're
thank
doing some very exciting things there, and this is, you know, this is just a
yes,
step on it, which is
yeah,
really lovely. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. All will be revealed in
All
good
will be
time.
revealed in time, yes.
Lots of exciting things. But thank you so much, Christine, for giving us your time and just sharing words of wisdom. Just, one little thought before we go, which takes us back to the very beginning when you said that you grew up in Edinburgh. I
Yeah.
had no idea because I just live an hour down the road from Edinburgh, and I've traveled spent so many times in my life traveling to Edinburgh, through Edinburgh. My family's from Glasgow. I've got real deep Scottish roots, and obviously I'm on the board for the Scottish Astrological Association. So that really resonated with me. And then what you said about, did you say about your grandfather being in India in the war?
My father.
Your father, yeah. So my grandfather served in India
All
in the
right.
war, and I've been told that he came back, and he was very impacted by the spiritual side of life that he saw. And he said that he saw and heard things that no one would ever believe.
Mhm.
So what you said there really resonated too. It was I got sort of goosebumps when he said that about India. Yeah.
It's extraordinary. I mean, what I find interesting now is that why didn't I go down the Vedic route? You know,
Yeah.
given you know what like how, because
Mm.
I could so easily have done that.
Mhm.
Um, and I still don't know really what the answer is to that. You know, I know that I was fascinated by astronomy. I was reading up about quasars and stuff like that early on. But then that Teach Yourself the Mayo book, that was the one that pushed me
Yeah.
into this type of astrology.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's fascinating. Fascinating.
I
Anyway, that was
know.
that, wasn't
It's fabulous. Thank you so
it?
much. And take care, everyone. And there'll be another episode soon. So let me just end the recording.